What's up everybody, Chris here from Bold Canyon Outdoors, and today we're going to install something awesome on the Kawasaki Mule. Today we're going to be putting on the winch plate from Kawasaki and the OPENROAD 4,500 pound ATV winch. So we're going to be taking off the front bumper, we're going to be digging into everything that we have to do to put it in. So stay tuned and we're going to show you what we're working with. We're going to go ahead and get started. All right guys, first off, here's what we're going to be working with. I've got the Kawasaki winch mount plate, the fair lead plate for the bumper, and of course the OPENROAD 4,500 pound ATV winch. Now these are all going to get mounted on the differential plate on the four-wheel drive Kawasaki Mule SX, and I'm going to show you exactly where that's going to go. All right, behind the front bumper and behind this brace here is the winch mounting section right here. It's this big plate that covers up the front differential. This whole piece is going to come out. We're going to take out the bolts on either side, and we're going to mount the winch plate to these bolts on top. Then the winch is going to sit on top of it. But first thing we got to do is take off the front bumper, which is going to be 2 bolts down here on the bottom and 2 bolts up here on top. And then we're also going to be removing these 2 kind of protection plates that go on either side of the winch mount plate, because the winch is actually going to slide in from the side. So these are giant Phillips heads, and then we've got some bolts down here. So we're going to go ahead and put some tools together and get this front bumper taken off. All right, the front bumper is held on with 4 14mm bolts. So we're going to get those taken off and set aside. All right, the front bumper's removed. That was easy. And you'll notice in the bumper, there's these 4 holes right here. 1, 2, and 2 more on the other side. And that's where the fair lead mount is going to mount on the back of the bumper. You'll also notice with the bumper removed, we have a heck of a lot better access to everything going on underneath. And this is the big plate right here that the winch plate is going to mount to. And as you can see, it's bolted onto that front differential. So next up, we'll get out these Phillips head screws, we'll take off these side plates, and we'll get ready to put a winch mount plate together. All right, now that we've got the side panels loose and the front bumper off, we can access this big mount plate that's on the front differential of the Mule. It's held on by 5 bolts. You've got 2 on either side here and there, and then you've got this big bolt with a nut on it that goes right through the differential housing. So we'll go ahead and get that taken off. These are also 14mm bolts. All right, now we can pull out the differential cover plate that the winch mount plate mounts to. So the next part is actually mounting the winch to the winch plate. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to mount the OPENROAD winch to the winch plate itself using the 4 10mm bolts right here. Next thing, we're going to take this plate here, and it's actually going to mount through the differential plate and into the winch mount. So it's kind of a sandwich together 4-piece design here. So we'll go ahead and we'll get the winch mounted first. Now first thing you want to do is make sure you're oriented correctly. So this is the front of the winch, and the winch plate, this is the front of the winch plate. So we're just going to flip it over and we're going to set it on like this. And then we're going to go ahead and put the 10mm bolts in. As you can see, it's kind of a tight squeeze down there, but just take your time. get them threaded in finger tight, and then we'll go ahead and torque them down to spec. Just like that, the first step of the mount plate is done. All right, next we're going to mount the winch plate to the differential plate itself with the stiffener bracket on the bottom. So this is the front facing this way. So we're going to take the differential mount here, I'm going to line these holes up, and then we have this stiffener bracket, which is going to go right here, and we're going to put in the supplied 14mm bolts. Now I forgot to mention the bolts that go directly into the winch get torqued down to about 12 foot-pounds, and these guys get torqued down to about 18 to 25 foot-pounds underneath. So we're going to go ahead and tighten those up, and we'll be good to go. All right, guys, there you go. The winch is on the mount plate, it's on the differential mount, and it's ready to go back in the mule. Now, I do recommend hooking up some wiring now so you aren't fumbling around with these little 10mm once it's up underneath the rig. So we're going to go ahead and hook up the blue wire and the yellow wire, and we'll be ready to mount it inside the mule. First, we'll put these little isolators on the wire, keep the grit and grime out, and then we'll go ahead and take the nut off, and we'll sandwich it between these two washers. One washer, put the wire on, and we're going to have it kind of facing backwards because it's going to be going towards the battery of the vehicle. That washer on, put that nut back on, and we'll get it tightened up with our 10mm wrench. And we'll slide this isolator back on. Man, it's a cold morning. These don't want to move very well, but we'll get it back on there. Blue wire's on. It's one thing I love about the OPENROAD winch. Everything's color coordinated. So we'll go ahead and get the yellow wire on here. Do the same thing, different color. Slide the little isolator on. We'll take off the nut and one of the washers. Get the wire mounted. One washer, one 10mm nut. Like I said, we've got it oriented to the rear because the battery is mounted centrally located in the mule. So we have to get the wires towards the rear. Get that one tightened down and get the isolator up and over the nut to protect it from water and grit and grime. Between the cold plastic and my cold fingers. There we go. Make sure you take your time and really get these on, because this is a world of difference when it comes to protection. You know, the winch is mounted right up front in the vehicle, so of course it's going to get mud and dirt and water and everything else. So you want these posts protected as good as you can. All right, time to get it mounted up and in. All right, so this is definitely going to be the trickiest part of the install because we've got to cram this whole thing through this opening. So we're going to push the brake lines out of the way. We're going to open up this flap. Now what I recommend is first, just kind of get your wires up there just so they're out of the way. And we're going to take this guy and we're going to finagle it through this opening, pulling the wires as you go so they're out of the way. And it is a tight fit, but it will make it, I promise. Whoop. Just don't drop it. Takes a little bit of shifting and motion. Like I said, this is the trickiest part, so just take your time, move it a little bit at a time, rotate it where it needs rotated. Make sure you don't pinch the wires. Let me adjust the camera here. Okay, just want to make it so it's a little bit easier for you to see. So we're through the flap here. Now we just need to go up and rotate like this. Okay, so now I want to check and make sure, all right, wires are out of the way. We're clear on top. Now, it was a little bit of a tight squeeze just getting the differential plate off, so I would imagine I'll just have to work it down a little bit here. There we go. All right. There. All right. Okay, so it's in there. Hopefully you could see that pretty well. I wanted to get nice and close up, but the next thing we need to do is put this long bolt back through here and these 4 bolts in the front. And then we're going to put the fair lead on the bumper and get the bumper mounted back on. All right, guys, here's something I just noticed. When I put these in finger tight on the 4 in the front, it didn't pull it back enough to be able to get the long bolt in. So what I did was I tightened a couple of them, and then sure enough, super easy to get that long bolt back in. Now I'm going to go ahead and get everything tightened down. All right, guys, the winch is completely in, mounted, and rock solid. And full disclosure, I decided to remove the front grill assembly or faux grill with the headlights because it's going to make it a lot easier to get the wiring done. Now, it was very simple to remove. I didn't film it, but it just has a handful of these little clips and a couple of Phillips heads, and then you just unclip the headlights. It's really simple. Light pops right off. So next up, we'll get some wiring done. All right, so I rolled it out of the barn to get it wired, and as you can see, we've got the yellow wire and the blue wire here. Now, inside the Mule SX, there is a channel underneath the floor to run wiring. So what I've done is I've hooked up the positive and the negative here. I've run it through the channel, and you can see the blue and the yellow are right there, and the red and the black are right there. So I think we're going to mount the control box right up there. So I'm going to get the rest of the wires pulled through, get the control box mounted, and we'll go from there. All right, after some hard work and getting it through the tunnel underneath the floor, I've got the whole junction and control box right here, which is actually going to be mounted right up there. The wiring is all hooked up. The remote is right here. Now, it does come with 2 wireless remotes also, but with this, I can run it out a little bit so we can attach the fair lead. All right, guys, there you have it. There is the install of the OPENROAD 4,500-pound ATV winch. You can see it's a really nice, clean install. Sits back out of harm's way. The fair lead, nice and flush with the bumper. Everything's back together the way it should be in there. So like I said, the OPENROAD winch comes with 2 wireless remotes plus the switch that's going inside the cab. I'm going to finish buttoning that up, and next up I'll have a video showing how the winch works, some of the capabilities, and we'll get out and we'll have some fun with it. So for right now, that's it. And if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them below. Be glad to hear from you. But for now, this is Chris signing off for Bull Canyon Outdoors. Happy trails, everybody.